And that is enough to get you through the most dangerous part of the lane phase, because if this Camille gets onto you with the Hail of Blades, it's lights out. It's lights out for like 90% of the bot lane champions.
And a Shen at the support position. Could go towards Xiaoshu as well, but maybe not expecting that to come through blind. It's a great matchup into the Camille. You can cancel out a lot of that damage by using your Spirit's Refuge. So potentially a bot lane set up for JDG in the first rotation. We're going to get that Ziggs instead of the Mel here for Hope, with Tarzan locking in the Neferi as well.
Wow,
hello, ai xin bổ nhá. Đùa vịt cái gì? Chưa kiếm được đồng nào đổi được vịt.
Both of these junglers have had really disgusting games on, especially against each other. And so I think that it's really going to be important for this time to set up that bot lane for success, because one of the main reasons that this meta is so weird is supports basically get to level 3.
Không có tiền ngài xin bổ ơi.
To get solo XP, which means that you're not missing out on those extra ability point levels, which is why mages typically were played mid for so long. And then the supports come back bot after about 8 minutes or so, when catch-up XP kicks in for them big styles.
Không có tiền.
From level 3 up to level 6 in no time. So that's the main abuse pattern that we're expecting to see with this Syndra Shen versus Ziggs Camille bot lane that we're expecting.
Syndra historically, maybe more of that lane bully, but also now can scale very much into the late game as we enter the second phase of bans. You can see some mid lane targeting.
Không có chơi mấy cái trò đấy nha.
Seems to me that they are expecting that Ziggs to go down in the bottom lane. No surprise there. On the other side, Junja's Olaf getting taken away as well. Still waiting to see where exactly things are going to be landing. There's a lot of picks that could be flexible, but there's also an assumption that we've locked in the bot lanes and the jungles for both of these teams and are waiting for those solo laners.
Absolutely, and then it comes down to the fact that we have JDG with the last pick, which I think has become...
Có bao giờ chơi đâu mà bỏ hả gái xin bố ơi. Gái xin bố đốn hết cho thầy tí đi, gái xin bố ơi.
But having last pick means you get the agency to flex lanes around.
Nói cho tôi tí đi à, anh gái xin bố ơi.
Two champions and you're like, actually,
hello Toàn nhá.
We have a secondary option to throw bot. It gives you that option to kind of adapt to the completely weird meta that we find ourselves in a meaningful manner. And when you have somebody like Tabe behind you, that is the kind of person who will take advantage of being on that red side.
The ban towards Xiaoshu, this one being the Vayne, as now JDG get an opportunity to probably lock in a top laner here, if I'd have to guess. You want to most likely keep that flexibility option with things like the Syndra. However, maybe you just lock your mid lane or bot lane in here, guarantee that you get a good matchup for one of the better top laners that we had in split number 2 of regular season in Xiaoshu. Gonna be the Gnar though, locked in. A lot of options that could go into.
Xem nào, nhìn qua là bắn bích là cái gì đây? Camille sẽ đi với Ziggs của đường dưới à? Mẹ trông lỏ thế nhở? Trông lỏ thế ta.
For JDG, they're probably going to try and get him another big counter pick in game 2. We'll have to see with the Ambessa being hovered, very standard.
Camille mà đi với Ziggs thì có ổn không nhỉ?
Honestly, AL, I could really see them just slamming this with lock right now, because you've got everything to dive in. If you wanted to pick something that has a bit more defensive capability, the Galio works quite nicely here for being that follow-up dive with them. Cassio, that's okay for a different kind of philosophy of being ready for JDG to dive in, but it doesn't exactly follow your divers as much as I would personally like.
Gives you a little bit more damage for Shanks, and also a bit of that peel still available for throwing out the miasma to prevent somebody like Hope from getting dove by the likes of Junja or Vampire. Waiting for that final pick of JDG to fully understand where that Syndra is going to be headed. Not a bad matchup into that Cassiopeia, and it looks like JDG are potentially leaning towards an actual 80 carry selected down there for Gala. You see the hover of the Tristana, maybe a nod to the Gnar counter, but it will be the Jhin.
Đội hình bên Jhin Đông độ ổn hơn chứ nhở? Bên Jhin Đông vừa có đam vừa có tanh này. Bên này thì hơi thiếu tanh. Đội hình trông một AL trông có vẻ hơi lỏ đúng không?
So I'm very curious. This is kind of the trap that you can fall into, where if you don't pick two champions that can flex between
lỡ rồi trông vẻ hơi lỏ đấy.
to pick the matchup. So far, it doesn't look like we're seeing it. We're getting pretty close to that 20-second mark, so we will be getting the standard draft of what's on the screen. Where do you want to start talking about it?
The bot lane obviously will be an interesting one. The Ziggs Camille always
Vẽ đâu ra con rồng đất, vẽ đâu ra con rồng đất đây.
Really becomes powerful once, as you said, Kyle hits level 3, should be able to impact some of these other lanes, potentially match up alongside Tarzan on the Nefiri, which is a champion that really can snowball into depths that are beyond any other champion in terms of the strength that level that she can get if an early kill, an early invade ends up going their way.
And one of the things that the Camille support is so good at doing is enabling a jungler with damage to get onto the enemy jungler or onto a laner. We've seen so many times that a Camille will just leave lane at level 3, run mid lane.
Cần che mặt tuyển thủ không nhở? Chắc phải che đấy.
I'm gonna be a little scared of this game. You've got to play super respectful around those timers because this is an explosive game waiting to happen.
Jungle support is going to be very important for both of these teams throughout this series, throughout this season, and certainly in this game. Debuting in split number 3, it's JD Gaming and AL taken to the Rift here in Shenzhen.
Rồi, trận đấu chính thức là bắt đầu. Xem nào cái mã QR che cam này là cái.
We have an early play here for AL. Kyle, level 1, going for a hook shot onto Honkyu in the mid lane, pops the ignite and forces the Syndra's flash.
Làm tí chổi đi.
Some bot lane shenanigans level 3, you're gonna get him level 1.
Love that. It's a very solid adaptation. It just means that now Hope has to play surviving. I believe he's managed to pick up all 3 of those minions XP, which is the main thing. As long as he keeps on parity with levels and gets that satchel charge, Hope will have the ability to just chuck it down and bump the Vampire away when he goes for the engage, which is where most of this JDG bot lane's threat will come from, particularly.
Chổi đợt bình luận lấy cơ.
So,
ok.
at the moment, definitely benefit to AL. We see.
Ok đấy. Cái gì đây? Quảng cáo cái gì này?
Recall along with Tarzan, probably gonna pick up a long sword control ward and then skedaddle onto the opposite side of the map.
Cứ làm tí không liên quan đi.
There is going to be AL once again with support roaming agency if Tarzan wants to do something with his Camille.
Yeah. Only problem is that they are going to be pushed in for the time being because, of course, Kyle sacrificed that level 1 to make a play towards Honkyu in the mid lane. Has worked out well for Shanks, though. See the bot lane continue to play out just a little bit. As you say, both junglers picking up their long swords and going for their opposite sides of the blue quadrants. Like Tarzan's finishing up that right now, maybe getting a little bit of assistance from Kyle as they're starting off the roam game early. That's the thing about playing this Camille. You can burn the flash off of the Syndra, but then you gotta punish it by returning to that original play. Looks like they could be looking towards doing that now.
But part of the reason that you don't want to do this until level 3 in an ideal situation is at that point you stop having reduced gains from missing out on XP. Right now we do have Kyle just matching Vampire on the roam, leaving the air quote control mages of Jin and.
Cái đội hình này thì chắc phải over đấy anh em ạ. Phải nhiều mạng đấy. Sao ít mạng bọn này được đúng không? Toàn con lao vào đánh nhau thế này.
Perhaps this kind of gameplay that got the LPL on the map back in the day as well, right? Some of that aggressive early game skirmishing. Good to see a bit of a return to that
level 2
of play as we now see Kyle.
Level 2 phá luôn không?
Junja, who is maybe looking for an invade.
Level 2 cứ đi long ca long quăng ấy nhỉ?
On the red side, Tarzan should be able to pick that up, and Kyle will end up returning back to the mid lane. I think this is going to be a common trend that we see throughout today, Melvin. The bot laner is going to be on a bit of an island here today.
And it does add that extra emphasis on that jungle support communication.
Oh, they don't know that Kyle was here.
Đánh nhau to.
Anyway, and Shanks is hunting him down with the twin fangs. One more would have been able to kill.
Không flash lên à? Không flash lên làm cái E nữa là chết rồi. Nhở? Flash làm cái E là chết rồi.
In the mid lane, but Vampire doing a good job body blocking to make sure that Kyle cannot go forward again.
very respectful. That ward saving Shanks, who was very much considering flashing after Honky for the kill, but realizing it would have been just a straight up trade. Opting to instead just take the crash and then get a favorable reset, as it is, again, both junglers just continuing their clear. Nothing too special, just posturing the supports back in front of each other like very aggressive chess pieces that they are ready to throw away for anything.
Vampire cancels the base. Not going to get punished though by it, as Kyle not able to fully connect that hook shot. Finally, our Camille does hit level 3. Came at a bit of a delayed timer, but it means that Shanks is now going to get a little bit of opportunity to push this wave in himself, get a back, pick up a little bit more gold, and actually result in First Blood not being given over at this stage.
And the reason that Vampire was being so greedy by the looks of it to cancel that
Con nào khổng lồ này bay vào này.
that Honky did not miss out on any of the XP.
100 năm chưa thấy anh like à? Ôi giời ơi. Giờ đi làm công ty rồi em ạ, không có thời gian like đâu. Này có LPL mới like chứ. Hello em Hiếu nhá.
They know what's up there. As Xiao Shu unable to find that kill on the Breed, has picked up a decent gap in CS though.
Em Hiếu này đâu à? Vẫn ở 36 đây à?
The game. See both of our supports once again skirmishing around the Raptor pit. That control ward also valuable. Kyle able to pick that up, and now again go back to the mid lane here. This is just chaos. You never know. It's like you're watching a horror movie, Melvin. You never know when you're just gonna see a Camille or a Shen randomly in your lane.
Yeah, and those are definitely intimidating champions to have just show up with the threat of a flash taunt or flash hook shot, pretty much meaning death for most of the champions in the game. And now, as we look, it is just jumping in. Ginger taking the Raptors. Tarzan did secure the first dragon though, and it was an infernal dragon, and in a game like this, I think they're going to be very, very happy with getting one of those on the board. And with Chemtech being the next one, that means there's a lot of very solid souls on the table if we can get some dragon stacking coming out.
Yeah, we'll see what exactly that lines up with in a few short minutes, but now Vampire in the mid lane once again. Both of these guys almost like playing to cancel each other out at this point, right? Neither Kyle or Vampire are going for plays in their own right, but they're both there to respond to the other. Do like the Shen support pickup in this composition.
Hello Sơn Nguyễn nhá. Này có quả bóng rổ miền Bắc.
Specific counter with Camille where
thằng Kazakh đấy à?
The precision protocols get cancelled by the Spirit's refuges, but in general, that
Kazakh đấy à?
ability going to be very valuable against what AL has to offer, as well as the Stand United try to protect some of that dive.
Mẹ sáng này ăn hụt mấy con phò nữ cay vãi lìn. Chết. Đổi mạng rồi, bắt đầu các anh bắt đầu công hiến rồi. Ăn đủ. Sóng âm. Đi một máu à. Ai lìn. Mẹ sáng này hôm nay đúng ngày đen của tôi thật. Vãi cả lìn. Đánh thế mà không chết. Mà sao quả run ra này không tốc biến để trừng phạt nhở? Tốc biến để trừng phạt lăn mạng rồi, cần gì sóng âm đâu. Để xem lại nào, xem có đủ đam không nhá. Thiêu đốt, thằng này thì chắc chắn là chết rồi. Đây. Còn này tốc biến lên. Được này. Ai lìn. Tốc biến trừng phạt là ăn được mạng nó rồi. Đánh như bịp ấy nhở. Quả này là tôi tốc biến lên bú luôn cái mạng đấy rồi anh em ạ.
Here for Tarzan to open up this game. It is the Void Grubs taken on the other side by JD Gaming, but overall AL are going to be very happy.
Xanh có ulti thì liên quan gì em? Tốc biến lên trừng phạt nhanh mà. Tốc biến lên trừng phạt là ăn luôn thằng kia còn quan trọng gì? Ui giời ơi, vô ảnh bộ trượt. Không chết được.
This is one of the things that Vampire has been enabling his jungler to do, just constantly be walking forward. However, it's level 8 and a 0-0-0 Lee Sin. This is usually a very bad sign. Oh god, I didn't even see Gala's HP.
Speak 10. You know who's not 0-0-0? That's Tarzan, who's going for another play, this time in the bottom lane.
Sao?
Nice job by Hope to chunk
Đó là hòm dành cho Jin Đông map 1 rồi.
It's 3-0. Anyone's legend. A good start from a team that desperately needed a bit of a
Làm mã đây em Kazakh ơi, làm mã đây.
They've just not panned the camera down at all, so I hadn't even
Và đó là
looked
toát.
at the HP bars. Hope really using this Ziggs to get most of the poke down. Okay, it's not poke. It seems to be just one heavy trade where he did all of the work.
Then he ults there too.
Oh
nice
no. Yeah. All right, that's enough. That is enough. Wholesome Ziggs champion.
And hey, he's done pretty well for himself. I think in general, Hope has been comfortable with playing on a bit of an island at times on this Anyone's Legend roster. You know, we think of Flandra as generally that more weak side player, but there were times he was getting a lot of attention in the draft, getting some of these funky counter picks. So Hope's been comfortable playing kind of both playstyles. That's why we're excited to maybe see situations where now with Breathe coming into the roster, this roster can now be even more flexible if he's able to play at the level that we have seen of him when he was on Weibo, even parts of last split on Invictus Gaming. It's like right now he's struggling a little bit just in this matchup against the Gnar. Maybe we'll get dove again by Junja as he's looking for another play.
And that's why I think it comes a lot to the philosophy of how you want to play this current meta game.
Gonna get public execution as Junja also has a Shen on top of him as well. There goes the taunt, the resonating strike, Xiaoshu getting the kill, and JDG are on the board.
It's not often we get to say just play safe top lane, but just play safe top lane. That was a exertion of resources from JDG as Hongyu is in danger.
Yeah, just play safe mid. Yeah, Miasma on top of you. There's the hook shot as well. That's another kill going the way of Anyone's Legend as Kyle has made a really good number onto Hongyu in this one. It will be just another trade here, top for bottom lane. Gets power potentially taken down by JDG first. Just barely ahead of that satchel charge from Hope. We also have that second dragon taken by Tarzan in the bottom side. It will be a Cloud Rift here in this first game.
A lot of pressure is going on to Xiaoshu to perform this game. If this Gnar is not able to absolutely run over the side lane.
Hồi nãy thằng sếp em nó nhờ nạp hộ 35M.
Right now because the Jhin, I mean, you know, they're going to be doing utility things. But who
Rồi em nạp vào là sao? Wow, quan trọng gì đâu em. Game này ngã ngũ à? Chưa chắc đâu, game này đang đẹp. Game này vào tí bùng lỗ đi em. Vào tí bùng lỗ kin đi. Làm tí bùng nổ đi. Không có cụt được đâu, trận này không cụt đâu, tí đánh nhau liên tục. Mẹ tí với thằng AL, thằng Jin Đông ép đánh nhau liên tục.
Yeah, I mean, you slip up one time or you're not in the right position one time if you're Vampire, and all of a sudden Honky's 0-2 in this game because Kyle just continues to put the pressure down. Still making plays alongside Tarzan in this one, but now Vampire can go for one of his own onto Shanks. Junja, Bowie Wardhawk, petrifying gaze. One more.
Thằng này bay vào chết luôn.
Ends up getting the kill, but here comes
dân tộc Tày anh em ơi, dân tộc Tày rồi, dân tộc độ Mixi. Dân tộc độ Mixi rồi. Tiếc chưa? Tiếc chưa? Thề trận này lật thằng Jin Đông lật được. Đang liền dí rồi. Mất flash rồi. Hũ được nha. Còn có 700 vàng nữa. Được nha anh em nhá, Đừng nói tôi điên,
Honestly, what would have been a super turn right then. If Tarzan's ult is allowed to connect and he gets that first kill, suddenly it's a very different fight.
Oh man, that was a pretty sequence there for JD Gaming. Unfortunately for them, it only results in one kill, but Junja jumping over the ulti, Then you see Honkyu canceling Tarzan's ulti. Just really good execution. You talked about how JD Gaming haven't been using their
Đừng nói tôi điên.
well. They definitely did it well in that sequence.
Vảnh bộ à, đánh không?
Vampire looking for a little bit of play on the breed, not going to find it. See the Rift Herald going to be spawning in about 30 seconds to both teams making their way towards the top side.
And the thing I think I love most about the LPL above any other region is when you have a fight and you get important summoners, i.e. Junja, Tarzan, Shanks Flash, you punish it and you get something done.
Oh, got Honkyu's flash, and that's going to be another
What
kill
a
as
great
well. Ooh, it's been tough to be a Syndra in this game, Melvin. I think it'll continue to be. As you see the dive composition of AL once again punishing
PUBG có bị bản quyền không anh? Khó em ạ, bản quyền chắc. Cái đấy bên 500 brot nó mua hết rồi. Bản quyền là cái chắc em ạ. Xem là chỉ có xác định sập.
Yeah, Honky definitely could have flashed that there, but Brave, excellent line to take, quite literally in that case. As the Rift Herald should be enough
Thằng Hồng.
to swing the game
Thằng
heavily
Hồng.
in AL's favor with a Ziggs in pocket. That's at least 2 towers.
Thằng này là hồng âm đạo chứ hồng cái gì?
With a lot of the key cooldowns gone, both teams are actually very reticent to look at the Herald seriously. Maybe that's because the Dragon is up in 30 seconds, and if a fight goes wrong here, you lose both.
Trận này vẫn ngon nha.
AL deciding Dragon stacking will be the way we want to accelerate the game.
Yeah, looks like AL opting not to take that Rift Herald fight. Maybe they feel like they have enough turret damage already in this game just with the Ziggs helping out alongside some of these other champs. But for AL, just a reset. Yeah, maybe just looking for that Dragon instead. Vision control on the bottom side. Now you're belonging to JD Gaming, and they have a lot of crucial ultimates still available for them to go for this fight.
And we take a look down the board. It's mid-jungle flashes, both unavailable from either side. All of the dive ultimates available for AL. Will they even look to approach, though? It looks like they're just going to say, no, give it, we're a bit too slow. And I think that not being prepared for that Dragon and then not responding with Herald is a bit of a blunder for AL, because part of the reason we have seen Baron kind of just fall to the wayside of importance in the current version of the game is having Mage's bot usually means you're rubbish at Baron. You have a Cassiopeia for AL, so you can take it somewhat quickly, but for JDG, Gnar is your best Baron damage, so you really do need alternate win conditions, whether that be securing the other purple objectives to have better siege, or Dragon stacking to get to the Elder with an advantage. And so leaving an extra 10 minutes on the clock is something that I feel like AL may come to regret.
Yeah, I mean, they feel comfortable in this game right now, but would really probably have preferred to continue to push that pace a little bit, get to that soul point. As you say, Cloud Soul in this game, very valuable for both teams, but I think even more so for anyone's Legend when you have players, you know, champions, I should say, like Breathe on the Mbessa, the Nefiri for Tarzan, Kyle's Camille that really want to dive into that backline. Getting that extra cooldown, that extra movement speed on the ultimate abilities.
Sao thầy không xin vào á? Tôi thật sự là không có chuyên môn bình luận eSport lắm. Nói chung là cũng chưa đủ nhiều hiểu biết để làm ấy. Tôi chỉ tự tin làm, ví dụ là bóng rổ thì tự tin này. Làm bóng rổ tôi tự tin làm thôi, nhưng mấy cái khác tôi không tự tin lắm. Kiểu có mấy cái kiến thức mình còn chưa nắm rõ. Mà giờ nói thật mà học thì cũng lười. Học thì cũng lười. Bây giờ học mấy cái kiến thức map miết cũng lười ấy. Cần gì chuyên môn đâu, ai bảo đấy, vào cái kênh với bình luận YouTube không chửi bậy được đâu, chửi bậy mất view nó chửi chết.
Take off the crystalline bracers of this mid-tier one.
A colossal win for JDG because they also got 2 teleports out of AL. That gives you the agency on the map and means now with the Shen, you can.
Thật ra môn nào tôi cũng thể bình luận được nhưng mà nó không chuyên nghiệp lắm. Ví dụ như Liên Minh này có mấy cái chiêu cuối mình không biết hết này. Tính ra cái Liên Minh này là bình luận nó thật dễ nhất. Liên Minh này là bình luận dễ nhất. Nhiều cái để bình luận.
We'll have to see if it actually keeps us
VBA thì tối nay hẹn 7:30 vẫn rứa thầu. VBA tối nay vẫn rứa thầu. Tối nay thì cũng cứ rứa thầu. Mất luôn cái trụ mid. Sao nhìn bọn Jin Đông là đánh nhùng thế nhở? Trông cứ xìu xìu nhở, đánh mạnh mẽ là xem nào. Mẹ ồ ạt đi xem nào, không tí nó lết nó lại khẹt cho. Tí con rắn nó lết nó lại khẹt cho. Mẹ bây giờ đang kéo được thì đánh đi. 2 rồng rồi, chuẩn bị rồng 3 rồi. À trận này rồng gió bẩn anh em ạ. Con rồng không ngon dành cho cả hai đội. Một cái linh hồn không ngon dành cho cả hai đội. Đây là cái thời điểm mà Jin Đông hoàn toàn là có thể đánh nhau này, khi mà tất cả đều đã có cho mình một đồ lớn. Giai đoạn mà đánh nhau là sẽ là có lợi thế hơn. Khi mà con Cassiopeia này thì phải cần đến 2-3 đồ mới mạnh cơ. Tầm này đội hình này mà lết thì AL win chặt rồi. Đội hình kia thì chị. Con giờ hin 4 viên bắn hết 4 viên hết. Cút.
And lets JDG secure some safety for themselves to play around the dragon.
Yeah, a bit of a breakout from Xiaoshu last split even, though it was his third split on JD Gaming. I think the best one that we'd seen from him after being on some of these lower tier teams for a number of years, really turning into a player that was able to generate leads on his own, team fight well, and so far having a good time against Breed, much like he did for a majority of his time in Split 2 back when he was on Invictus Gaming. Talked about some of those, funny counter picks that he was able to whip out against him in the playoffs, or during some of those, or not the playoffs, I guess, but during some of those games at the end of the regular season, things like that Tristana. It's been a fun player to watch grow as a part of this team, him and Vampire, those young pieces here on JD.
Really feels like it's added some life to the team. Just fed back into the ingenuity and the creativity that we expect from the JDG team as a whole. Now with the dragon up, we take a little summoner review. Basically everything combat summoner wise is available, but it looks like JDG just aren't even gonna walk up. They say, alright, we bought 5 minutes, that's the best we needed.
Yeah, so they're gonna be able to pick up Soul Point. JDG looking for a bit of a response, but Kyle's a good shot over the wall. They pop the Herald, but
Hồng Quy ơi, cái thằng này nó ngu nhở. Ulti vào không? Đánh nhau kiểu gì cũng chết ai vậy? Đánh nhau kiểu gì cũng chết ai ạ? Có ngon. Đợi một chút nó sẽ ra. Nãy thầy kêu chọn Jin Đông mà. Chọn Jin Đông đi. Nhưng mà giờ chắc thôi em ạ. Bỏ chịu. Đây rồi, mạng đây rồi. Hai thằng này tôi nghĩ chắc không đủ sát thương đâu. Hai thằng này tôi nghĩ eo nó không một tí sát thương nào luôn. Cái thứ liên minh gì đây ạ? Cái thứ liên minh bẩn mắt gì đây ạ? Không một tí sát thương nào đến từ Zindog. Zindog gặp Ôn Lằn Gaming. Cái đội Ôn Lằn Gaming này hình như là đầu tư cho Việt Nam bắn PUBG này đúng không anh em? Đội hình như đang top 1 luôn. Đội của thằng Himas đây đúng không? Đội của thằng Himas. Mà xem clip thằng Himas bắn bọn CR buồn cười vãi lìn. Cái bọn CR7 mẹ Pio ấy buồn cười vãi lìn nhờ. Sắp cúp rồi á? Tưởng đang top 1.
When you look at what these compositions like to do and how they function at this portion of the game, AL actually have a lot more wave clear than JD Gaming have, right? You have Shanks, who's able to throw down that Miasma issue at the Twin Fangs, Hope on the Ziggs just naturally as that champion able to do that. Syndra and Jin maybe not as much so, right? And so I think we saw that really nicely when AL was able to push mid and actually even ignore the Rift Herald from JD Gaming to get that third dragon. That's going to be another really big opportunity for them to try to claim that soul if they're able to utilize their pieces in that right way. And I think JD Gaming are going to have to instead look for more scrappy plays before those objectives spawn, like we're seeing here. Public Execution does not connect here for Breathe, and Junja's already down to half HP, but he gets taunted up by Vampire, and they're going to be able to shut him down. And it's going to be
đây rồi.
landing with the Scout of the Week.
Đứng im. Mày đứng im. Anh chỉ cần 4 viên.
We'll take him down. It's a double kill in for Gala, and JDG
Anh chỉ cần 4 viên.
they're looking for, and have a 3v5 for the next 35 seconds.
Bắn bắp gì không thầy à, nghiện. Mày bây giờ mày biết bắn không? Biết bắn thì tí vào. Tí vào.
IL still has his ultimatum, uses it onto Vampire, try to burst down the JDG support, but the Baron's
Em bắn hơi kinh đấy à. Ngày xưa có một thời tôi từng ước mơ trở thành game thủ PUBG anh em ạ. Nhưng mà điều kiện không cho phép, không có tiền mua máy. Cái hồi mà game mới ra, cái năm 2021 đấy anh em. Năm 2021 game mới ra là hồi đấy mẹ ăn ngủ với PUBG nghiện. Ngày nào cũng ngồi net hết hết 1 lít tiền net. Mà nó xong rồi bỏ đi, chắc bỏ phải 2-3 năm gì đấy không chơi rồi. Xong rồi quay lại bọn nó công nhận bọn nó bắn ghê thật. Tôi thể với anh em nhá, hồi xưa nhá, tôi bắn PUBG nhá, tôi không ngán mấy thằng pro player luôn đấy, thật va căng luôn đấy, tôi va căng bọn nó luôn đấy. Quả Bochinki Hao ngày xưa bắn game phòng net tôi va căng bọn nó luôn. Cái thời mà còn bọn Bochinki Hao là mẹ tôi va căng bọn nó luôn đấy. Giờ vào bắn đi mẹ mà nó bắn được mửa. Không là phải công nhận cái hồi đấy game nó mới ra nên là gà nó nhiều ấy, bắn dễ, gà nhiều, có thể mình bắn vào kiểu như mình smurf ấy.
Xiaoxu was able to use his to actually join the fight that got them that there.
And now we have a series of play where AL is looking to try and scare JDG off of the mid wave. It's the thing, Ziggs, even through Baron buff, is doing a pretty decent job of clearing the wave, which makes it so hard for JDG to go to the side lanes because of how far away AL can engage from. It's just a lot of threat, what is super intimidating, because if you're not a 5-stack, you could just blow up immediately, and now it will result in JDG getting the dragon. No Ziggs bomb to steal, nice attempt though. And what's really gonna come from this Baron? One dragon and a bot lane tier 2 tower? It's like something, but nothing substantial.
Have to just look for more plays, more fights like the one that.
Đó là bình luận viên Slam lạy bố.
Led by players like Vampire and Junja hunting together as one. Tarzan jumps away from that Scout of the Week as the mid lane tier 1 turret.
Anh mới supply qua đây chơi à anh? Anh mới bị supply, anh qua đây chơi à anh?
For 40 more seconds, Scout of the Week landing here
Sao?
on Kyle. They might be able to one shot him. Power not actually used by Hongqi. That should have guaranteed the kill. Instead, they were hoping that the curtain call.
Tiếc chưa thằng Giang Sơn mày tiếc chưa? Tao hỏi mày vào Jin Đông nên giờ ấm mẹ nó rồi. Mà tin Jin Đông giờ mà nổ hỗ rồi. Tiếc chưa? Có đồ lết cho thầy chưa? Phải có đồ lết cho thầy chưa?
Big thing here with this Baron buff and with that last fight is that now Gala really is online. He was behind 1,000 gold. You're seeing him continue to rack up the stacks, finding the kill on the Shanks.
Đó là
underneath the mid lane tier 2 turret. This Jin with that infinity.
Không vừa nãy vẫn được bao nhiêu nhỉ? Vừa nãy rate được bao nhiêu đây? Kazakh. Rate vừa nãy được bao nhiêu ấy? To. Tôi nghĩ chắc được tầm tầm 3 là cùng. Ôi đánh liên tục rồi.
JD Gaming finding angles every which way. Junja flashes forward, forces the hourglass from Hope, but he's only going to be deploying.
Anh em thấy chưa, tôi bảo rồi, cái đội hình Jin Đông này cứ ồ ạt lên đánh là bọn kia không bao giờ thủ được. Ôi, cứ ồ ạt lên nó đánh thì bọn kia không bao giờ đép được anh em ạ. Anh em thấy tôi nói chuẩn không? Mọi người có chuyên môn nhận định nó khác. Chẳng qua lúc đầu nhìn nó nhùng quá. Cái khoảng thời gian mà một đồ 2 đồ nhá, đội hình của Jin Đông này không thể thua. Đánh combat không bao giờ thua được. Con Kasobia này Phải có đồ. Lết thì lâu lắm. Lết phải tầm phút hơn 30. Thua luôn, cúc luôn. Ôi hóa đá là đẹp này, nhưng mà xanh thì đứng im bất động trước những cái tình huống khống chế của bên phía Jin Đông. Trụ thì đang bắn thành viên Jin Đông, còn một mình KL thôi. Người nếu sinh là 5 giây lại đó là chiến thắng dành cho Jin Đông. 17 7-11.
That was a bit stressful at the end there, but at the end of the day, JD do walk away with it. Wow, that really did just explode out of nowhere, and it was off the back of several incredible scatters, followed by those deadly flourishes. Gala making some merit behind the Jhin as something that can survive against the mages, and when you don't index into a tank at all, still get pretty good work done. I'm very impressed of how he actually managed to do so much on the Jhin once that 3-item point was established.
Man, the just decisiveness and ability for JD Gaming to find these picks. It was AL who was doing that so well in the first 10-15 minutes of that game, with the help of Tarzan on the Nefiri, with Kyle on the Camille. But then in those last two sequences, it was Honkyu on the Syndra finding those Scatter the Weeks. It was Gala following up immediately with a deadly flourish, a force shot, anything that he had available for them. And those two big carries for JD Gaming were able to deliver them that win from basically what was an even game state just about 5 minutes prior.
Importantly though, we couldn't have got there if Junjia and Vampire hadn't snowballed Xiaoshu ahead. If this Gnar is not just beating Ambessa down in the side lane, suddenly it gets a bit scarier, because that's one extra diver who can really push past those breakpoints and give AL the confidence to force some of these plays. But the Gnar just getting ahead early made it so difficult for Breathe to breathe in this game. He didn't actually get to dive in unless it was with the whole team, and even then, it didn't result in a lot. He was kind of just a spectator for a good amount of it. If the team was diving, the team was diving, but outside of that, the Ambessa really didn't have as much impact as we would have liked for a champion who, you know, is meant to be 2024 level design. Like, we got to be going in and we got to be blowing up everybody.
Bit underwhelming from Breathe to open up his debut with anyone's legend. We saw that gold graph just completely spike in that last few minutes, and it seemed like, Melvin, anyone's legend was almost out scot-free from that Baron power play. It was about to expire, but then it was just pick after pick after pick. Those are mistakes that cannot happen, especially at that stage in the game, just too late into that power play. It seemed like anyone's legend saw that the 3-minute timer was coming up and kind of just let their guard down at absolutely the wrong time.
Yeah, these mage comps are very fragile, because if they go down, or if you misstep even slightly, you're gone. You don't get a second chance a lot of the time. There's not that super reposition ability, or the ability to dodge CC like Tarzan really should have done in that clip on there. I think if he doesn't die in that moment, it's not remotely as out of AL's hands from that point. But again, just not respecting the range advantage. When you have hope, you generally should be winning the range war, but you can't be walking up as two people to hold a mid lane tower when the entirety of JDG is representing off map.
And I know we're going to get to that player of the game in a little bit. You could throw it a lot of different ways. I'd be shocked. I'd have to give the vote to Honkyu here. I know he had a really tough early game. I think a lot of it not his fault, but those back-to-back-to-back Scatter the Weeks single-handedly won them that game.
I could see it going Gala for similar reasons, but I do agree that it's those initial disengages, including in the early play that did end up going JDG's favor. It was Honkyu hitting that scatter to stop Tarzan going in and getting Reset City. So I think that would be plenty deserved. I could even see Xiaoshu getting it, honestly. This is one of those games where it was everybody pulled their part for JDG. It was a tough early game, but they endured. They managed to find those isolated picks and just play better on the map than AL. So I'm not going to be surprised anywhere it goes, except for maybe Junji, I guess. That would probably be one where I'm like, fine, I guess, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, Xiaoshu did get a big lead. I don't know how much he ended up doing with it other than just, you know, taking a couple of towers. Those big team fights definitely belong to the main carries, but he is going to get that player of the game. Hey, the stats look good, but it seems like one of those big number player of the games, in my opinion.
Definitely big number one. I still think that by putting the Ambessa so far out of the game, it mitigated a lot of the pressure onto Honkyu and Gala and let them get that scaling, because AL showed a real tendency in those first 10 to 15 minutes to throw all the tools forward and go in. But they kind of just stopped doing that after a point, and I think that's because they wanted one other person in the fight with them to get through the Shen shielding, the extra just peel tools from the Syndra, make somebody force it and everybody else. And it looks like it was generally a pretty decisive vote from, you know, all the humans that voted.
Well, it's a big can of worms that we could dive into, but instead we're just going to congratulate JD Gaming on taking that Game 1 win over anyone's legend. Going to take a short break before we head into Game 2, but before we do that, we want to give you all a big shout out that are watching here on LPL English. If you'd like to continue to support us here on this channel, you can consider to become a coffee member. It is the best way to support the LPL English project, with the vast majority of your contributions going directly into the show. Bit of a potentially teaser for what we're going to see later on today. A lot of the initial payments for coffee go into upgrading the broadcast, but a huge bulk of it also pays on-air talent and us content creators, so you can subscribe to that coffee. It is linked in the chat right now to unlock perks like early access to content and the ability to ask interview questions for our unique on-site interviews. World's coming to NA soon. I know a lot of us are based over there. We'll see how that ends up going through. Game number 1, a JDG win. We'll see if AL can bounce back after this short break.
lâu nhờ. Chắc là ọp thôi anh em ơi, chắc là ọp thôi. Tối VBA thôi, giờ làm tí cái gamer ấy. Thôi, bye anh em nhá, hẹn anh em tối VBA nhá. Giờ đi tập gym em ơi. PUBG à? Ok, làm một trận nhá. Làm một trận giao lưu với em cá rắc xem nào. Một trận đi. Rồi tao đi tập gym. Ok, bye em Toàn nhá, tối vào nhá. Mày nhắn cái tên game qua Discord đi. Tao tắt like cái.